Yesterday, my daughter Sarah walked into my small house in the suburbs of Chicago, carrying a designer handbag and a bouquet of white lilies. She put them on the kitchen table, hugged me, and asked with a radiant smile, "Mom, the $20,000 I send you every month, is it enough? Are you happy?" My heart stopped. For the last 6 months, I had been surviving on food donations from the church and help from my neighbors. The worst part was not discovering the stolen money, but seeing the smile on my son-in-law David's face in the background, knowing exactly what he had done. But before I continue, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Ellen Smith. I am 65 years old, and I live in a simple house in a quiet neighborhood. I spent my entire life working as an elementary school teacher, raising my only daughter Sarah alone after my husband passed away almost 20 years ago. We were never rich, but we lived with dignity. My pension covered the basics until an autoimmune disease complicated my health and medication began to eat up almost all my income. Sarah was always brilliant. She graduated from medical school, specialized in plastic surgery, and today at 38, she owns a well-known clinic. She married David 5 years ago, a businessman in the cosmetics industry. He always treated me with a polite distance that I blamed on shyness. My daughter lived a life of luxury that I only knew from the enthusiastic stories she told me during her visits, which became rarer and rarer. At the beginning of the year, when my condition worsened, Sarah promised to help me financially. "Mom, I am going to deposit $20,000 into your account every month. I don't want you to worry about anything," she said, hugging me tightly. I remember crying with gratitude and relief. For the first 2 months, the money actually appeared. I was able to pay for my expensive medications, hire a cleaning lady, and even make small repairs around the house. But then, without explanation, the deposit stopped. I tried calling Sarah several times, but she rarely answered. When I did manage to speak with her, the answer was always the same. "Sorry, Mom. I am so busy at the clinic. David told me he is handling the transfers. Are you not getting the money?" How could I tell my daughter her husband was lying, that I was eating whatever my kind neighbors brought me, that St. Jude's Church was giving me weekly food baskets? Pride kept me from revealing my situation, so I just answered, "Yes, everything is fine, honey." Months passed. I had to stop taking some medications to prioritize others. The refrigerator was often empty. Mrs. Linda, my 72-year-old neighbor, started bringing me homemade soups and bread, saying she had made too much and did not want it to go to waste. Mr. Daniel, a retiree who lives on the corner, would come by to fix small things around the house just to pass the time. I knew it was charity, but I accepted with a grateful smile and hidden tears. That brought me to that Sunday afternoon when Sarah showed up unexpectedly smelling of French perfume, with her hair perfectly styled, and asked that question that made my world fall apart. "Is the $20,000 enough?" I looked at her then, at David standing in the doorway, and finally at the kitchen table where I had just put away the food basket that Father Michael had brought hours earlier. I took a deep breath and answered with a shaky voice, "Honey, I am surviving on help from the church and the neighbors. I have not received that money in months." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face turned pale, while David remained impassive except for a slight furrowing of his brow. For a moment, I thought I saw a smile forming at the corner of his mouth. "What do you mean, Mom? David shows me the receipts every month," Sarah exclaimed, turning to her husband. David took a few steps forward, his posture defensive. "Mrs. Smith must be confused. Maybe she forgot to check her account. Age catches up. Memory fails." I felt my blood boil. I might be old, I might be sick, but my mind was perfectly clear. "I am not confused, David," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my trembling hands. "I check my account every day. The last deposit I received was in March." Sarah looked between us, confusion and suspicion mixing on her face. "We are going to check this right now," she said, pulling her phone from her purse. While she was on the phone with the bank, I watched David's face. He kept a neutral expression, but his eyes were calculating as if he was quickly weighing his options. That is when I realized he had never made the transfers. He was probably showing Sarah fake statements while stealing the money for himself. "Mom," Sarah said after hanging up, her voice strangely calm, "the manager confirmed it. There are no records of transfers to your account since March." David quickly jumped in. "It must be a bank error. I will sort it out tomorrow." But Sarah was not listening to him anymore. She looked at her husband as if seeing him for the first time. "You showed me statements, David. Every single month." "They must be from another account," he replied, irritation starting to show. "Your mother must have given me the wrong number." "I never gave you any number," I answered. "You never asked me for one." Sarah's face transformed. Confusion gave way to understanding and then to fury. "Where is the money, David?" she asked, her voice dangerously low. He tried to touch her shoulder, but she pulled away. "Honey, let's talk at home. Your mother is confused enough already." That is when Sarah exploded. "Confused. Confused. My mother is struggling to survive while you... She could not finish the sentence. Tears began to roll down her face. As I watched them argue, a strange calm washed over me. After months of anxiety, the truth was finally coming out. But there was no joy in it. Just the pain of watching my daughter discover the betrayal of the man she trusted. A betrayal that went far beyond money. In that moment, I decided I would not stay silent anymore. I might be old. I might depend on the help of others. But I still had a voice. And it was time to use it to expose the truth that for so long remained hidden under false smiles and forged statements. Little did I know that Sunday afternoon was just the beginning of a battle. A battle that would teach me the true meaning of courage, dignity, and justice. One that would change the course of my life and my daughter's life forever. The next day, Sarah returned alone. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her posture, normally elegant and confident, seemed defeated. She sat at my small kitchen table and held my hands. "Mom, I do not even know where to begin to apologize," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I really thought the money was getting to you. David showed me the statements every month." I squeezed her hands, feeling the weight of guilt that was not hers to bear. "It is not your fault, honey." "But it is. I should have checked. I should have called more, visited more. How could I have been so blind?" The tears fell again. I made us some chamomile tea, the same kind I used to make when she was little and had nightmares. The familiar aroma seemed to calm her a bit. "What happened when you got home?" I asked, dreading the answer. Sarah took a deep breath. "I confronted David with everything. At first he tried to deny it, said it was some bank error, but when I showed him I had spoken directly to the manager, he changed tactics. He said he was saving the money to buy you a better house, as a surprise." I shook my head, skeptical of such a bold lie. "I did not believe him, of course," Sarah continued. "I demanded to see where this supposedly saved money was. That is when he admitted he used it for personal investments. He said he had some financial problems and would pay me back soon." "And you believe that?" I asked gently. She looked up, her eyes firmer now. "No. When I searched his office while he was in the shower, I found statements for an account in the Cayman Islands and receipts for luxury purchases. A $50,000 watch, Mom, with the money that should have been feeding you." My stomach clenched. Not because of the watch. I already suspected the money was going to luxuries. But because of the pain in my daughter's voice. "And there is more," she continued, wiping her tears. "I found transfer receipts to someone named Laura, monthly, just like the ones that should have been coming to you. When I confronted David, he finally confessed. He has been having an affair for almost a year." The silence hung heavy between us. I remembered how David always seemed uncomfortable at family gatherings, how he constantly checked his phone. The signs were all there, but neither Sarah nor I wanted to see them. "I spent the night in a hotel," Sarah finally said. "I have already called a lawyer. I am getting a divorce." I got up and hugged her. My daughter, always so strong, was sobbing in my arms like she did when she was little and fell off the swing set. I felt a mix of sadness and fury growing inside me. Sadness for her pain, fury for the man who deceived us both. "What are you going to do now?" I asked when she calmed down. "First fix this," she said, taking out her phone. I made a bank transfer right in front of him. I just sent $120,000 to your account. It is the value of the 6 months you did not receive. From now on, I will make the transfers myself. No intermediaries. I tried to protest that it was too much money, but she was firm. It is the least I can do, Mom. We are going to hire a nurse to help with your medications and care, and I am going to start looking for a better apartment for you closer to the clinic. I looked around my small house. It was modest, yes, but full of memories. Every corner told a story of our life together. I do not want to move, honey, I said softly. I love this house. I just want to be able to live in it with dignity. Sarah nodded, respecting my decision. Then we will renovate it, make it more comfortable and safe. I accepted, feeling a wave of gratitude. Despite everything, I had a wonderful daughter who, even in the midst of her own pain, was thinking of my well-being. And what about David? I asked. Her face hardened. I do not just want a divorce, Mom. I want justice. He committed a crime against you. Embezzlement forgery. My lawyer said we have a solid case, not just for the divorce, but for a criminal trial. I felt a chill. A criminal trial is not that going to be too draining for you, honey. Probably, she admitted. But I can't let this go. It is not just about the money. It is about what he did. He left my mother struggling while he supported a mistress and bought luxury watches. Her voice broke. How could I marry a man like that? People like David are experts at hiding who they really are, I replied, remembering similar cases among my old teacher colleagues. Do not blame yourself for being deceived. We spent the rest of the afternoon planning the next steps. Sarah called her lawyer, who recommended I hire my own legal representative. He referred me to Patricia Goodman, an attorney specializing in elder law. 2 days later, I was in Patricia Goodman's office. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an air of efficiency. She listened intently as I recounted everything that had happened. Ellen, she said, and potentially financial elder abuse, we have a very strong case. I do not want to cause my daughter any more suffering. I hesitated. I understand your concern, the lawyer said kindly. But think about this. If there are no consequences, Mr. David may do the same thing to other vulnerable people. Besides, a lawsuit can help your daughter recover some of the money in the divorce. I thought about the months of humiliation, the nights I lay awake worrying about how I would pay for next month's medication, the times I accepted help from my neighbors feeling like a burden. I thought about my wounded dignity. Let's move forward, I finally decided. Not for revenge, but for justice. Patricia Goodman smiled. We will do this the right way. And Ellen, I want you to know that your courage in telling the truth that Sunday may have saved your daughter from years of deception. Sometimes the most painful truths are also the most necessary. I left the office feeling lighter than I had in months. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was finally no longer on it alone. I had my daughter back, I had a competent lawyer, and above all, I had the truth on my side. While I was waiting for the bus to go home, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Linda, my neighbor. Ellen, are you okay? I just saw David leaving your house. He looked furious. My heart raced. I had not told Sarah that he still had the spare key I gave them when I had my surgery last year. I thanked Mrs. Linda and hung up immediately, calling Sarah. David was just at my house, I said as soon as she answered. What I am calling the police right now. Wait, honey, I need to check if he did anything first. Against Sarah's protests, I asked the bus driver to let me off at the stop closest to my house. I walked quickly down the familiar street, my heart pounding in my chest. As I got closer, I immediately noticed something was wrong. The front door was ajar, swinging slightly in the afternoon breeze. I hesitated for a moment, but the worry about what might have happened inside my house overcame my fear. I pushed the door open slowly and went inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. My small living room was completely trashed. The books I cherished were scattered on the floor, some pages torn out. The family photos that adorned the walls had been thrown down, glass shattered everywhere. The sofa was slashed as if someone had attacked the upholstery with a knife. But the worst part was in the kitchen. In large red letters, David had written on the wall, "Ungrateful old hag, you will regret this." My legs buckled. I sat in the only chair that remained intact, staring at the destruction around me. Silent tears rolled down my face. It was not just broken objects. It was memories, pieces of my life scattered as if they were worthless. I called Sarah with trembling hands. In less than 20 minutes, she arrived with 2 police officers. Her face turned white when she saw the state of the house. "Mom," she whispered, hugging me tightly. The officers photographed everything. They took my statement. "Ma'am, this is breaking and entering vandalism and making criminal threats," the older one said. "We strongly recommend you file a formal report and request a restraining order." Sarah nodded vehemently. "We are doing that right now, and you are coming to my house today." I looked around at what was left of my little sanctuary. "No, honey. If I leave now, it is like he won. I am staying." "But Mom, he threatened you. It is not safe." "Your daughter is right, ma'am," the officer intervened, "at least until the restraining order is granted." I reluctantly agreed to stay at Sarah's house for a few days. As I gathered some clothes from the bedroom, the only room David apparently did not have time to destroy, I made myself a promise. I would not let fear control me. That threat on the wall would not be the final word in this story. At the police station, we filed the formal report. The captain, after hearing the whole story, added the charge of financial elder abuse to the accusations. "Mrs. Smith," he said seriously, "what happened to you is more common than you think. Many seniors suffer financial abuse from people close to them and never report it out of shame or fear." His words resonated deeply. How many people my age were suffering in silence, just as I had for months? "What can I do besides the lawsuit?" I asked. "You have already done the most important thing. You spoke up. You broke the silence. But if you want to do more, there are support groups for elderly victims of violence. Your experience can help others find courage." That night, lying in the guest room at Sarah's apartment, I reflected on everything that had happened. In just 3 days, my life had turned upside down. The discovery of David's betrayal, the impending lawsuit, my vandalized home. It was as if a hurricane had passed through me. But strangely, in the midst of the chaos, I felt a clarity I had not experienced in a long time. Maybe it was because the truth was finally exposed, or maybe because at 65 I was finally relearning how to fight for my rights. In the darkness of the room, I made a promise to myself. I would transform this painful experience into something meaningful. Not just for me and Sarah, but for all the elderly people who, like me, had been silenced and exploited by those who should have protected them. The battle was just beginning, but for the first time in months, I did not feel defeated. I felt ready to fight. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and activities. Sarah insisted I stay at her house until mine was fully restored and a security system was installed. Meanwhile, the legal processes began to take shape. Patricia Goodman, my lawyer, became a fierce ally. Meticulous in every detail, she gathered evidence that strengthened our case. Bank statements showing the transfers David made to his mistress using the money that should have been mine. The fake statements he showed Sarah, and photos of the destruction he caused at my house. "Ellen, every detail counts," she explained during one of our meetings. "We are building a case not just for fraud, but also for financial elder abuse and emotional distress. I want the judge to see exactly what you went through." Sarah's divorce ran parallel to my lawsuit. Her lawyer Paul worked in coordination with Patricia Goodman to ensure that the evidence from one case strengthened the other. With every new discovery about David's activities, the picture grew darker. "Mom, we found out he was also embezzling money from the clinic." Sarah revealed one day, exhaustion clear on her face. "Small amounts from various patients so I would not notice, but it all adds up to over $300,000 in 2 years." The news shocked me, but it did not surprise me. David had proven he was capable of anything for money. "Now he is being investigated for business fraud," she continued. "Several patients were contacted, and they are furious. My professional reputation is at risk, Mom." I hugged her, feeling her body tremble with unshed tears. "You are an excellent doctor, honey. Your patients know that. When this is all over, your clinic will be even stronger because it will be built on honesty." Sarah nodded, wiping her tears. Lately our roles had subtly reversed. Now I was the one comforting her, offering strength when hers seemed to falter. The restraining order against David was granted quickly, forbidding him from coming within 500 feet of me or Sarah. But that did not mean we were safe from his influence. One afternoon while Sarah was at the clinic, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered hesitantly. "Ellen." A young, nervous female voice came from the other side. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Laura. I am the woman David was seeing." I felt my body tense up. The mistress calling me. What could she want? "I know you must hate me, but I need to tell you some things about David, things you and your daughter need to know." I arranged to meet her at a cafe near Sarah's apartment, informing my lawyer first. Patricia Goodman insisted on coming with me, worried it might be a trap from David. Laura was much younger than I imagined, maybe 30, with blonde hair, and the look of someone who had not slept in days. Her fingers drummed nervously on her coffee cup as she spoke. "I met David at a cosmetics event a year ago. He told me he was married, but that the marriage was ending, that his wife was cold and obsessed with work," she began. "I am a sales rep for a beauty brand, and he suggested a business partnership that evolved into a relationship." She paused, visibly uncomfortable. "At first he was attentive, generous. He sent me flowers, expensive gifts money. He said he was saving up so we could start a life together as soon as the divorce was final. I believed him." Her voice broke. "But then I started noticing strange things. He always needed to borrow money despite seeming rich. He had fits of rage when I questioned anything. And once drunk, he bragged about how easy it was to manipulate foolish women like his mother-in-law and his wife." Patricia Goodman leaned forward. "Laura, would you be willing to testify to this in court?" The young woman hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I am, because there is more. 2 weeks ago, after your daughter confronted him about the money, he came to my apartment completely unhinged. He said he was going to scare the old woman so she would drop the charges. I tried to calm him down, but he was out of his mind. The next day I found out on the news what he had done to your house." She looked at me directly. "I am so sorry, Mrs. Smith. I should have warned you. Do you have any proof of these threats?" And she pulled out a small recorder. "I do. I started recording our conversations a few months ago when I realized something was very wrong. At first it was to protect myself, but I think now it can help you too." We listened to clips of several recordings. David's voice, which I knew as always polite and controlled, sounded unrecognizable. Aggressive, threatening, describing in detail how he planned to scare me into dropping the lawsuit, how he was hiding money in offshore accounts so Sarah could not claim it in the divorce, how he had forged patient signatures to embezzle funds from the clinic. Patricia Goodman could barely contain her professional excitement. "This changes everything. With this evidence, we can request he be held in custody, pending trial for witness tampering and physical threats." I looked at Laura, who was now crying silently. "Why are you helping us? You could have just disappeared from the story." She looked up, her eyes red. "Because when I saw on the news what he did to your house, I realized I was involved with a monster. And because I am also the daughter of a mother who raised 3 kids alone, working as a cleaner. If anyone did to her what David did to you—" Her voice cracked. "I would never forgive myself if something worse happened and I had not tried to stop it." Leaving the cafe, I felt a strange mix of gratitude and pity for that young woman. She had also been manipulated, used as a pawn in David's game. "We are including her as a key witness," Patricia Goodman said as we walked, "and sending the recordings to the prosecutor immediately. With this, Ellen, our chances just went up exponentially." That night, I told Sarah everything. Her initial reaction was rage. At Laura, at David, at the world that seemed to be conspiring to destroy everything she had built. But as we listened to the recordings together, the anger gave way to a cold determination. "He is not going to get away with this, Mom," she said, her voice firm. "Not for what he did to you, not for what he did to me, and not for what he did to my patients. We will go all the way." That night, lying in bed, I reflected on how the truth had unfolded in ways I never could have predicted. What started with a simple question: Is the $20,000 enough? Had revealed a web of lies far larger and more complex than I imagined. I fell asleep with one certainty. As painful as it was to face the truth, it was infinitely better than living in the shadow of lies. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Patricia Goodman. Her voice was bursting with enthusiasm. "Ellen, we did it. The judge has ordered David's arrest pending trial. Laura's recordings and the evidence of threats were decisive." I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. On one hand, David could no longer threaten us. On the other, the situation had just become even more real and serious. "When is this happening?" I asked. "He was arrested this morning at his office. From what I heard, he did not resist, but he was furious." As I was absorbing the news, the home phone rang. It was Sarah. "Mom, did you hear David was arrested?" Her voice fluctuated between relief and shock. "I'm on my way to your house. We need to talk." In less than half an hour, Sarah arrived. As soon as she walked in, she collapsed on the sofa, exhausted. "You cannot imagine the chaos at the clinic, Mom. Reporters are calling, patients are worried. The news spread like wildfire." She sighed, running her hands over her face. "David's minority partner in the cosmetics company called me. It seems David was using company money too. Everyone is panicking." I put a cup of tea in front of her and sat beside her. "How do you feel about all this?" Sarah stared at the steaming cup. "Relieved that he can't threaten us anymore, but ashamed, humiliated. How did I not see the kind of man I was married to? How did I let him do this to you?" "Honey, people like David are masters at hiding who they really are. He did not just fool you. He fooled his colleagues, his patients, Laura." "Yes, Laura." Sarah took a sip of tea. "Honestly, I do not know if I should hate her or thank her. If it were not for her recordings, David might still be free planning who knows what." We sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in thought. "You know what is most ironic, Mom?" Sarah finally broke the silence. "Our entire marriage, David always complained that I worked too much, that I did not pay enough attention to him. Now I understand why. He wanted me to work less so I would not notice what he was doing with the clinic's money." Later that day, we got a call from Paul Serra's lawyer. "The case is getting media attention," he reported. "I have already received 3 calls from journalists wanting to interview Ellen about financial elder abuse." Sarah looked at me worried. "Mom, we do not need to expose our lives anymore. You do not have to talk to anyone if you do not want to." I thought about the months I suffered silently, about the captain's words, about how many elderly people were going through the same thing without ever reporting it. My case could help others find courage. "I want to talk," I decided. Not about David or intimate details, but about the importance of seniors reporting it when they are being exploited. If my story can help just one person escape what I went through, it will have been worth it. Sarah smiled, squeezing my hand. "I am so proud of your courage, Mom." The first interview was for a local newspaper a few days later. The journalist, a middle-aged woman named Claudia, was kind and respectful. She did not press for sensational details, focusing on how to recognize signs of financial abuse against seniors and the resources available for help. "Mrs. Smith, your story is powerful because it breaks the silence on a problem many prefer not to see. Would you mind if we share it with other outlets?" I nodded, and in the following days my phone did not stop ringing. Other newspapers, radio shows, even an invitation to a television program. In every interview, I emphasized the same message. No one should be ashamed to ask for help when they are being exploited, especially seniors. The case's notoriety grew when it was discovered that David had deceived not only me and Sarah, but dozens of patients at the clinic and various investors in his cosmetics company. What began as a case of financial abuse against a senior was revealed to be a much wider fraud scheme. In the midst of all this exposure, I received an unexpected call. It was Teresa David's mother. "Mrs. Smith," her voice sounded tired and ashamed, "I know I have no right to call you after everything my son did, but I needed to apologize." I was stunned. I had only met Teresa a few times during Sarah's marriage, always at formal events where we barely exchanged words. "You are not to blame for your son's actions, Teresa," I replied. "Yes, I am. she insisted, her voice thick with emotion. "I knew David had problems with money since he was young. Small thefts, lies, manipulation. I always covered for him, always justified it, saying it was just a phase. And now—" She began to cry. "Now he has destroyed so many people's lives." I felt a wave of empathy for the woman. "Teresa, we all make mistakes raising our children. No one gives us a manual." "You are very generous, Mrs. Smith," she said between sobs. "David is in jail. My husband blames me, and our family is being publicly humiliated." After that conversation, I reflected on how the evil David caused extended far beyond just me and Sarah. His parents, his colleagues, innocent patients, everyone was suffering the consequences of his actions. The legal process moved forward. With Laura's recordings and the documentary evidence Patricia Goodman gathered, the case against David was solid. Furthermore, the forensic accounting of the clinic and the cosmetics company revealed a trail of fraud that made his situation even worse. 3 months after David's arrest, we were called for the first hearing. Walking into the courthouse was intimidating. I had never been in an environment like that, with its solemn formalism and rigid procedures. Sarah held my hand the entire time, her face a mask of determination. David was brought in handcuffed, wearing a prison uniform that seemed too large for his now visibly thinner body. Our eyes met briefly. I saw no remorse in his eyes, just cold hostility. He quickly looked away, focusing on his lawyer. The hearing was technical, with the lawyers presenting arguments and the judge asking occasional questions. David remained silent most of the time, speaking only when directly questioned. In the end, the judge ruled he would remain in jail during the trial, citing flight risk and the severity of the crimes he was accused of. The next hearing was set for a month later. "It is just the beginning," Patricia Goodman explained as we left the courthouse. "But we are on the right track. The judge seems to understand the seriousness of the crimes." In the following days, I returned to my routine of caring for my house, now completely renovated, thanks to Sarah's help. The walls had been repainted, the furniture restored or replaced. There were no visible traces of David's invasion, but I still carried the invisible marks of that experience. On one particularly difficult afternoon, when anxiety about the next court appearance was consuming me, I received an unexpected visit. It was Mr. Daniel, my neighbor, who had so often helped me with small repairs during those difficult months. "Mrs. Smith," he said shyly at the door, "you have been in the newspaper and on TV quite a bit." I invited him in and served coffee. We talked about trivial things until he finally revealed the real reason for his visit. "You know, Mrs. Smith, when you started talking about violence against seniors, it got me thinking. My older sister, Louise, she lives with her son, and I think he is doing something similar to what was done to you. He controls all her money, never lets her go out alone, and when I visited her last month, she seemed so thin, so sad." My heart clenched. "Have you tried talking to her about it?" He shook his head. "I tried, but she denies it. She says everything is fine, that her son takes good care of her. But I see it in her eyes, you know. The same fear I saw in yours before you reported your son-in-law." I took a piece of paper and wrote down Patricia Goodman's number and the number of the captain who had helped me. "Mr. Daniel, give these contacts to your sister. Even if she does not use them now, at least she will know she has options." He thanked me emotional and hugged me before leaving. That conversation made me realize my story was having a real impact. People were starting to recognize signs of abuse that they previously ignored or normalized. Inspired by that, I called Patricia Goodman the next day. "Patricia, I want to do more. Not just prosecute David, but help other seniors who are going through what I went through." "What do you have in mind, Ellen?" "Maybe a support group, a place where seniors can talk about their experiences and get legal guidance. I know I am not trained for it, but I have the experience and the will to help." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Ellen, that is a wonderful idea. In fact, I have a friend who works at the Senior Resource Center. I can talk to her about a partnership. You would be a powerful spokesperson." The next week, I visited the Senior Resource Center and met Lauren, Patricia Goodman's friend, and the center's coordinator. She greeted me enthusiastically, showing me the facilities and explaining the services they already offered. "Ellen, your proposal for a support group specifically for victims of financial abuse is exactly what we needed. We have many seniors suffering in silence, not knowing that what they are going through is a crime." We started planning the group, which would be called Dignity in Aging. I would be in charge of sharing my experience and offering emotional support, while professionals like Patricia Goodman would give free legal guidance. In that same period, Sarah also went through significant transformations. The clinic, which initially suffered from the case's fallout, slowly regained the trust of its patients. She implemented new financial controls, total transparency in procedures and pricing, and even started a program of free surgeries for victims of domestic violence. "It is my way of making up for the evil David did using the clinic's name," she explained to me. Our relationship, which was already good, grew even stronger during this difficult time. Sarah would stop by my house almost every day sometimes just to have coffee and talk. On one of those visits, she brought up a topic we had been avoiding. "Mom, do you think you will ever be able to forgive David for what he did?" The question took me by surprise. I thought about the months of suffering, the humiliation, the fear my destroyed house. "I do not know if forgive is the right word, honey," I finally answered. "I do not wish him harm. In fact, I hope he recovers, understands his mistakes, and changes. But I cannot erase what happened or pretend it did not affect me deeply." Sarah nodded, thoughtful. "I still have so much anger. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all the lies, about how he used my love and trust to hurt the most important person in my life." "Anger is natural, honey. Just do not let it consume you. David already took too much from us. Do not let him take your peace of mind, too." She smiled weakly and changed the subject. But I realized the question of forgiveness was something we would both struggle with for a long time. The Dignity in Aging group had its first meeting on a sunny Saturday with 12 participants. They were all nervous eyes, downcast voices, hesitant. I started by sharing my story, not omitting the shame I felt, the silence I kept for so long, the fear of hurting my daughter. Little by little, the others began to talk too. A 78-year-old woman told us how her grandson sold her medication to buy drugs. An 82-year-old man revealed that his daughter-in-law had convinced him to sign the house over to her promising care that never came. The stories were different, but the pattern was the same. Trust betrayed vulnerability, exploited silence imposed by fear or shame. At the end of the meeting, a woman named Rose, who had not spoken the entire session, approached me with tears in her eyes. "Ellen, I saw your interview on TV, and it was like you were describing my life. Today, listening to all of you, I finally understood that I am not alone, that it is not my fault." She squeezed my hands. "Thank you for having the courage to speak up. You gave me hope." That moment crystallized for me the purpose of everything we had been through. The pain, the humiliation, the fear, all of it now served a greater purpose, helping others find their voice and fight for their dignity. David's trial moved slowly, with hearings and expert testimonies dragging on for months. In that time, our group grew, reaching over 30 regular participants. We built a support network that included volunteer lawyers, psychologists, and even some police officers specializing in crimes against seniors. 7 months after his arrest, David was finally convicted. The sentence: 12 years in prison for multiple crimes including fraud, financial, elder abuse, forgery, and business fraud. He listened to the decision impassively, showing no emotion. When we left the courthouse, a crowd of reporters was waiting for us. They pushed microphones toward us, questions firing from all sides. Sarah started to clear a path for us, but I touched her arm, signaling that I wanted to speak. "Mrs. Smith, how do you feel about your ex-son-in-law's conviction?" a young reporter asked. "I do not feel joy or satisfaction," I answered honestly. "I only feel that justice was served. What I hope now is that my story and the stories of so many other seniors who suffer similar abuse can serve to make society pay more attention to this silent problem." "And what message would you leave for other seniors who might be suffering as you did?" I looked directly at the camera, thinking of everyone who might be watching, perhaps in situations similar to mine. Do not be silent. Do not isolate yourselves. Do not be ashamed. What is happening to you is not your fault, and you are not alone. There are people willing to help, to listen, to fight alongside you. Age may bring some physical limitations, but it should never limit our dignity or our rights. On the way home, Sarah drove in silence until she finally spoke. You know, Mom, I remember when I was little, and you taught me about honesty, about the value of truth. Back then, I thought they were just moral lessons. Today I understand you were teaching me about courage. I smiled, looking out the window at the familiar streets of our neighborhood. The truth is not always easy, honey. Sometimes it hurts, but it is the only path to freedom. We arrived at my house, the same house where it all began that Sunday afternoon when I finally broke my silence. Sarah parked, and we sat for a moment in the car. And now, Mom, what is next? Now, I replied, we keep living, we keep helping others, we keep telling the truth, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. I looked at my small house, the garden I started cultivating as therapy, after all the trauma, the open windows letting in the sunlight. The house I almost lost, that was violated, and then restored, just like me. You know, honey, for a long time I thought getting older meant becoming invisible, losing my voice, my importance. Now I understand that every wrinkle, every gray hair brings with it not just years lived, but also wisdom, resilience, and a special kind of strength that only comes with time. Sarah squeezed my hand, her damp eyes reflecting mine. You have always been the strongest person I know, Mom. You just needed an extreme situation to rediscover it. That night, sitting on my restored porch, watching the stars that seemed brighter than ever, I reflected on the journey I had traveled, a journey that began with a lie and silence and was now transformed into truth and a voice. At 65, I had lost many things. Perfect health, the company of my husband, naive trust in people. But I had also gained others, a new mission, an even stronger relationship with my daughter, and the certainty that regardless of age, it is never too late to fight for one's own dignity. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Laura. Mrs. Smith, sorry to call so late. I just wanted to say I saw you on TV today. What you said about not being silent, well, it inspired me to seek help too. I am starting therapy next week. I am happy for you, Laura. It is the first step to healing the wounds David left. Do you think this will ever go away, this feeling of being so foolish, so manipulated? I thought for a moment, searching for honesty instead of easy comfort. I do not think it ever goes away completely, Laura, but over time you learn to transform that pain into something positive, into wisdom, into helping others, into understanding yourself. After hanging up, I went back to watching the stars. The same moon that lit my garden was also shining on David in his cell, on Laura in her apartment, on seniors across the country who might be suffering in silence, just as I had. For some of them, maybe my voice had been a small beacon in the darkness, and that more than any revenge or financial compensation was the greatest victory I could have ever achieved. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe, and tell me in the comments what part left your jaw on the floor. Oh, and do not forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos. I do not post here. I will see you there.